Welcome back to Celebrity Radio. It's Alex Belfield talking to some of the country's biggest stars and some of my favourite people. And we've got one for you today. The Tyneside group Lindisfarne are back. Originally founding members Alan Hull, Rod Clements, Ray Jackson, Simon Cowell, and of course Ray Laidlaw. Exploded into the UK market scene in 1970. Those great hits, Lady Eleanor, Meet Me on the Corner, Fog on the Tyne. All these wonderful songs are going to be put back on the stage with the Lindisfarne story. And I'm delighted to say Ray joins us now from up north, I imagine. How are you, Ray?
I'm absolutely fine, thank you very much. I'm down south.
Where are you?
Just near the south coast. We had a show in Havant last night and we're on the way north now.
Do you get a bit nervous when you go sort of anywhere south of Nottingham?
Oh, I used to. I don't anymore.
Your stuff is so wonderful and so memorable. I mean, the other great thing about your tunes is that they're sort of back of the shower songs. Everybody can sing them and they're so uplifting. I think that was the key to your initial success, wasn't it?
I think it was. I think we sort of surfaced at a time just after the Beatles had quit, really. And there was a bit of a gap for people who were doing short, sharp, to the point pop songs, you know, but with good lyrics, you know what I mean? I'm not talking about catty pop. I'm talking about stuff that had something behind it, a bit of literacy in the lyrics and stuff like that. And we just came along at the right time. And like you say, they're memorable. I mean, the shows we are doing now, we often get people who come who are just interested in the thing as a concept and might not be rabid Lindisfarne fans. And they speak to us after the show and they say, you know, I thought I knew 3 or 4 songs, but actually I knew them all.
You're going to be touring Milton Keynes, Scunthorpe, Liverpool. You then go to North Sea, Newcastle, which will be a great homecoming gig. Scarborough, Lancaster, Alnwick. I was there the other week, actually, a beautiful part of the country. Gateshead, Paul Blythe, and you continue the tour probably forever, because people aren't going to get bored with this. And the thing about folk music, I think especially, is that the audience are loyal and they stay with you forever, don't they?
Yeah, well, we don't just get the ones that were around at the beginning, you know, we get the kids and the grandkids now. You know, they're all coming. We've had actually a surprising number of young people at this show. I think possibly because, you know, things go in cycles and that type of rootsy music is very happening again. There's lots of young people very into it. And you're getting, you know, other people who are citing Alan and Rod, our writers, as influences. So it goes on and on. So I don't see any reason. We'll stop doing this when we get bored with it, but I can't see it happening soon.
Lindisfarne itself, I was up in Northumberland only this summer. I stayed in Sea Houses, I think. We drove to Lindisfarne, which is one of the most beautiful, most remote places in England where you just stand there in total awe of the natural beauty. I guess that was how you came up with it. Tell us the story.
Well, we had lots of names because the group started, the very beginnings of the group was in the early 60s, about 64, 65. And we had lots of names like Downtown Faction and Impact and all sorts of names like that. We were sort of a blues group. And then when we started incorporating a lot of original music in the show, when it was late 60s, we changed the name to Brethren. And we hadn't been Brethren very long when we were told by the record company just after we signed that there was a Brethren in America and we were going to have to change our name. And we fancied something from the Northeast because we knew that all our influences, which were mostly American, to be fair, Woody Guthrie and Bob Dylan and the blues artists and stuff, it was all filtered through a Northeast consciousness, if you like. And we wanted a Northeast-sounding name. And we were just knocking ideas around. We had a few different ideas. When John Anthony, the guy who produced our first album, who was with us for a few days, routining tunes, somebody mentioned him being at the Lindisfarne, and he stopped us in our tracks and said, "That's the name. That's what you're going to call yourself." We'd been going there since we were children, you know, school trips and all that sort of stuff. So we knew the place well, and we know it a lot better now, obviously, because we've made films there. And Billy and I opened the new Village Hall in the summer. We did the first time the band had ever, or anything connected with the band had ever performed on the island. We did it through the summer. It was brilliant.
It is a stunning place, isn't it? Just so beautiful. And
oh, it's fantastic. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah, really lovely, as is that whole part of the world. I wonder as well, just talking about the Northeast, whether that was a big influence for your personalities and the character of the group, because it's one of my favourite places to go. It's one of the last places in England that's got a true identity. You know the second you arrive there where you are, which is so fantastic.
I think you're absolutely right. As I said before, I think our musical influences were filtered through our Northeastern sensibility. I think there's definite character up there. People are very friendly, they're very direct also, and I think that comes through in our music. we didn't hang about, we didn't waffle on. We'll get to the point, and the music is like that too. We don't. There's nothing extraneous in there that's not required, and I think that made a big difference. And I think the fact, certainly in those days, a band came from a region. It doesn't happen a lot. There were some bands even later on, I suppose, like Duran Duran from Birmingham, things like that. But and Oasis from Manchester, of course. But it was still quite a thing to have a group coming from a region, and I think you can't help but take some of that influence with you.
Do you pinch yourself sometimes when you see your brothers on stage and you look around you and you think, good Lord, it's like looking at their granddad? Because, you've all got older together. It's a remarkable amount of time you've been doing this.
It is. It's ridiculous, really. When you think about it. When we start, that's one of the things. You can't really call what we do a job. It's a way of life. It always has been from the very beginning. I don't ever remember not wanting to do this. I did have a day job for a little while when in the teens, but it was never something I took seriously. I always knew that I would be doing something to do with music and entertainment, and we've continued to do it. And it's just so much a part of your life. It's not something you can knock on the head because you're right. Well, that's it. I'm 65. I'm retiring. You don't get. Muddy Waters didn't do that, did he?
No,
King didn't do that. There's no reason why we should do that either.
For you, what's your biggest hit? For me, Lady Eleanor's a wonderful song because that riff anybody can sing. But Fog on the Tyne is such a joyous song. Which is, in your opinion, your biggest hit?
Well, the biggest selling of all the singles. We never consider ourselves to be a singles band. To be fair, we were an albums band. In those days, you were sort of respected if you were an albums band, and if you had hit singles, that was a bonus. We never set out to be a singles. But my favourite of all of them has got to be Run for Home, because it's anthemic. It came at a time when we'd had a few years away from each other. We'd done a few other things. We came back in 1978 after a little break. It was the first single back. It was right in the middle of the new wave thing, so we weren't very welcome by the music press at that point. The last thing they wanted was a band from the early 70s back again. But despite all of that, it was an enormous hit, and it sold more than any of the other singles. And it was also a joy to work with Gus Dudley, who we worked with on that album. And it's probably the best sounding record we ever made in terms of quality, sound quality. It still sounds fresh as paint to me when you hear it on the radio.
Yeah, incredible. And then we've got to talk about some of the band members that didn't make it. Obviously, as the years go by, there has been sadness. There are members missing, and that must be tough because I guess to you, their family, you've spent so much of your life with them.
Absolutely. It is like family. When Alan went in 1995, in 1995 when Alan went, it was like a hammer blow because none of us knew he was ill at all. He had a heart attack and he was gone. And it took a long time. Well, you never get over something like that because it is like losing a brother. But you come to terms with it, but you don't. You never. I think about him every day. We celebrate him in this show. He was such a wonderful, quirky, wacky character. Apart from being an absolute genius, it was a wonderful person to be around. And then, of course, last year we lost Simon. And Simon and I were in our first group together when we were 13, so it was a long, long time. It was a bit different with Simon because we knew he'd been ill for a while, so it wasn't a surprise, but nevertheless it was a big miss.
And I guess for you and Billy Mitchell, it's got to be a sense of protection at this point. Your whole game is about making sure that the legacy of Lindisfarne is kept alive and kept as true as it always was. And that's the point of the Lindisfarne story that brings us back to 2016. To take these songs back on the road and tell the story of the band must be hugely satisfying.
It's great. It's great because, we don't just get, as I mentioned earlier, we don't just get people who are huge Lindisfarne fans. We get people who are just interested in the music of the 60s, 70s, 80s who come along because it's their story too. Because you know what it's like. You hear a piece of music and it takes you back to a place or a time in your life. And that happens all the way through with our stuff because they're such memorable songs. But the legacy, as you say, it's quite safe. Those songs are there forever. The BBC used one of our songs for the theme tune for a drama last year. There's a play in development in Newcastle based on the songs and the lyrics. Not based on the group, but based on the songs. There's a new book coming out. There's all sorts of stuff happening. It'll never be gone.
When the band were at their peak, how hedonistic and showbiz was it? Did you boys ever get into nonsense and shenanigans, or were you always in bed by 10 o'clock?
Oh, there was a fair share of nonsense and shenanigans. I know, but thoroughly enjoyed all that. But I find that we were never the destructive types, we weren't the tell you out the window sort. I mean, we were more the sort who would take the hotel manager's dog for a walk. But we did like late nights and partying, it has to be said, It was a lot of fun, and still is, we still enjoy it. Maybe slightly more sedate, but it's still fun.
And again, to be back on the road bringing these songs to life in 2016 must be so thrilling, because they've lasted the test of time. Not all music does that. Some 70s music sounds like it was from the 70s and it's done, but this music is timeless. In terms of the writing of it and the songs themselves, how do you know when you'd got a hit? Because there's no way of predicting it, is there?
Well, there's not. I mean, the first album, obviously we had the pick of every song that had been written for the first album, and I remember the people at Charisma Records, which our label, saying they reckon there were six hits on it, they thought then, and certainly they were right about 3 of them. So that happened. Later on it was a bit different, but I mean, I can tell you a brief story. When we were rehearsing for the Back and Forth album, we hadn't actually met Gus Dudgeon. We'd spoken to him and we knew he was working with him. He had a project that overlapped, so we started 2 weeks before and started routining stuff and doing some basic recording. And we were actually in the rehearsal room, and I discovered Run for Home in one of Alan's songbooks, and he hadn't presented it. I'd never heard of it. I knew all the titles of most of his songs, and I hadn't heard it. And I persuaded him to start playing it on the piano for me, and after about 10 minutes persuading, he started doing it. And I thought, this is good. And he kept on going, and a couple of the other lads wandered in the room and joined in, sort of automatically joined in the chorus. And at that moment, Gus Dudgeon walked in the door, and it was the first meeting, and he heard what was going on, and he said, that's the first single. And he knew, he spotted it straight away. He knew it was a hit.
Just knew.
He knew.
That kind of alchemy is wonderful, isn't it? And then, of course, we're back on tour. You're going all across the country. People can find out more. You can go to the website. Just put in www.lindisfarnestory.co.uk. You can get all of the dates there. You end the tour in Durham this year at the Gala Theatre. You can see Lindisfarne, the story. And thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.